We naturally focus on negative emotions, and this is based on evolutionary purposes. We tend to focus on that. And then we also hold a belief that we need to then focus on positive, but not go too far where the positivity becomes quote unquote toxic. And so then we find ourselves wanting to create some sort of emotional balance. And if we think that there's some sort of imbalance, something has gone wrong. What if nothing has gone wrong? It's not emotional balance that we should be trying to go after. It's more about emotional normalcy. You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode 145.
A podcast that breaks it down so you can break the cycle for good. Now, your host, Tara Rama, but you can call her T.
The best way for me to illustrate emotional normalcy is to start straight away with an example that happened the other day with my family. So whenever I get the question, how are you, or how your day is going, from my family members, not so much people I don't know very well, I answer it truthfully. I say, well, I've been a little frustrated, a little bit down, or I've had a fantastic day. I will equally also share that if I'm having a really great day. And what I noticed is whenever I say, well, I was a little frustrated today, a little down, my partner will ask all of these questions as if he wants all the details. Like, what happened with this person? What did this person say? And he'll go into it and ask really in-depth questions. And whenever I say fantastic, it's the end of the conversation, which I find amazing because I'm answering the question how my day is. And life is 50-50, which is, I'm going to come full circle to that concept by the end of this 10 minutes. But that is how my days are. Some days I have really fantastic days. Other days are not so fantastic. So whenever I answer this question, it is so curious to see how things get focused on. Now, when we are trying to teach ourselves or try to teach children about our emotions, what do? We focus on when they're feeling bad. Why are they angry? I noticed that we do this as adults, but we also do this to kids. If a kid is crying, we want to know, we want to understand it, we want to help them through it. When they're excited, normally what we do, because little children, when they're excited, tend to jump up and down because that's coming from the emotional vibration of experiencing excitement. We want them to express it in a more calm way. And we're trying to get all of the emotions kind of in this balanced, kind of calm way that it doesn't provide us with kind of this emotional normalcy that happens throughout life. So for asking our partners or our children, always what's happening when you're angry? And, or if you're sad, why are you sad? Or if you think that your child got rejected, we tend to want to talk about it with them, or we talk so much about when we're angry and we yell at them. What is the most common advice is to then talk to them about it. And in some situations, that might be relevant. I have a question for you. Notice how much time we spend analyzing and focusing on when we are down, when we feel angry, when we feel sadness, all of those emotions that we put into the bucket of negative emotions. We don't also do the same when we're happy. Hey, why are you happy? Why did you have a fantastic day? Tell me more about it. We don't sit there and dissect that, do a post-mortem on that experience. Instead, we try to kind of dim down that experience a little. Don't get too excited. And what this does is it denormalizes emotions. It makes the negative emotions 10 times bigger, not as simple to get through, not as fast to get through. And then there's something wrong if we have too much of a positive experience. If I have a fantastic day, and what happens if I have 2 fantastic days in a row? I'm all of a sudden maybe a little too happy, toxic positivity. And that is kind of interesting too. So we learn this by what we focus on, by what we tell our kids to focus on. And how many times do we find ourselves ruminating in our heads over our negative experience, over an experience where we felt shame? I do this. I find myself ruminating on it. I don't sit there and ruminate on my fantastic days. In fact, I quickly forget about them. I'm like, why do I quickly forget about those? Those are the ones I want to kind of hold on to. And even that idea is not normalizing it. So what is it that we can do to help create emotional normalcy? And I'm going to go a little deeper into what I mean about that, as opposed to emotional balance, where we're kind of more consistently calm. And I'm not saying that we're not never calm. Calm is one of those emotions. We sometimes want to get to a place of calm from anger to make decisions, but it doesn't mean that emotional balance is that we're kind of always in this calm kind of state. Emotional normalcy means that all emotions are relevant and they can be equally irrelevant, meaning emotions are just emotions, even the worst ones: hate, terror, fear, shame. They are equally relevant or just as equally irrelevant as happiness, excitement, joy, contentment, calm, all of those positive emotions. When we don't see those emotions equal across that spectrum, and it doesn't mean that we don't say that it's a negative, because it does feel negative to feel shame. It is not probably a pleasant experience for most people. But that the emotional worth of that emotion is part of being human. And that the imbalance is actually coming from our over-analyzing, overthinking on certain emotions. And the easiest way, I want to say it's the simplest way, to normalize the emotional experience, especially around the negative ones, because those are the ones we tend to focus on, is to not compound it. So if you're experiencing something negative, we tell ourselves that maybe we shouldn't be so negative, or we keep going on and we extrapolate it to other parts of our lives. And then we add on more negative thinking to the original negative experience that we had. So if something happens, we have an interaction with a friend and we feel shame after it. We feel bad because we're feeling shame about ourselves. And we feel bad because we feel bad. You're upset about being upset. You feel bad about feeling bad. And that compounds it. It doesn't normalize it. It makes it bigger. So it makes that negative experience bigger. And then what do we do when we have something really positive in our life and we have a positive experience? We try to dim that down instead of embracing that moment of happiness, that moment of joy, that moment of pleasure, embracing it to its fullest and enjoying it and not trying to minimize it, not saying, oh, well, I shouldn't get so, I know there's an expression, I'm losing it, where we try to dim down our excitement a lot. And almost like we want to try to stay modest, and we don't want to become arrogant or anything more boastful because we're having such a great positive experience, instead of embracing that and saying, this is that 50% of life that is great, happy. And then when we have that negative experience, when we're frustrated, angry, that this is also part of it. And I struggle with this, to tell myself whenever I'm in the middle of a negative experience, this is my 50-50. This is that 50% that sucks. Especially when I have a shame experience, I'm like, this is that 50-50 and it's lasting 3 days. And then I also can remember that when I am having a great day, this is my 50-50. And then what ends up happening is both experiences are rich. I feel alive in them. I don't make the negative worse, and then I don't dilute the positive. Instead, it's the negative instead of going over negative, and then it's the full positive, which essentially we kind of want to feel those positive emotions, yet we're not feeling it at its 100%. And then with the negative, we're going over that capacity. We're making it even more negative, past that 100% if that's possible, but we're giving it more space, meaning it's not at that 50-50, we're pushing on it and giving more credence to that 70% of negativity. So if you're guiding somebody else on emotions and you're teaching them, and this could be for your partner and your kids, is one of the things that I have been practicing with my family is to equally ask and be curious about each of the emotions and not go overboard on any of them. So if they're having a big negative experience, I am curious about it to a point, not to a point to analyze it. If they're having a positive experience, something's going great, I ask them about it. And it's weighted a little bit equally. There's no post-mortem on why somebody was so angry today or why somebody was so sad. And that is where I try to strive for more emotional normalcy, that emotions are equivalent to each other. There is no hierarchy of emotions and there's equal weight. And that can kind of enrich your life. And I'm going to end here with a quote from an actor that was British, and I wish I could remember his name. And it was in some interview, and he said, I put the good days behind me and I put the bad days behind me. That's emotional normalcy. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.